welcome to my first wrap-up video ever, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to share with you the books that I read in January 2023. I read 6 books this month, and I consider this a really good start of the year. Of course, I tried to make my reading as diverse as possible by choosing books from different genres and by different authors. The first book I read this year is called The Silkworm by Robert Galbraith, which, if you don't know, is the pseudonym that J.K. Rowling writes her murder mystery novels with. This book is the second book in the Cormoran Strike series, who is a private investigator who got famous in the first book by solving the murder case of a famous model. In this book, a woman comes to Cormoran's office so he can help her find her missing husband, who's an eccentric novelist. She's used to her husband being absent for a couple of days to write in solitude, but this time he has disappeared longer than usual. Turns out that this case is not a disappearing case at all, but a very brutal and sick murder. I mean, after reading this book, I really understand why J.K. Rowling chose to write this novel and the series in general under a pseudonym. She must have wanted to distance her name, J.K. Rowling, the beloved Harry Potter author, from this brutal and graphic series. Some things in this book in particular require a sick imagination to be written. I really love the author's descriptive writing style, even though it can be boring at times, but I thought this book is better than the first one in the series. The crime is much more interesting than the first book, and we learn more about Cormoran Strike's past in this novel. Not all the events in this book are directed to solve the mystery. There is a background story of the protagonist that we have been following since the first book, and it's not finalized in this one either. And I can't wait to read the next book in the series. The second book I read this month is called Hollywood by Charles Bukowski. This is an American classic that was written in 1989. It chronicles the process of writing a screenplay and then shooting a movie about the author's life. This book is a novelization for real-life events for the process of shooting a movie called Barfly about Charles Bukowski's youth. So this is a multi-dimensional book, really. It's a book about a movie about the real life of the author of both the screenplay and the book. But the book is not really that complicated as it seems. In fact, the book is very smooth and very fast-paced. In this book, we are introduced to what a writer's life is like and his struggle to transfer his thoughts to paper. Then we see Hollywood politics, funding issues, and behind the scenes to produce a movie. The main theme of the movie and the book is alcoholism. There's too much drinking in every scene in this book, and the subject is discussed continuously in the book. Most of the characters are on the periphery, but I thought that the worst thing in this book is that the author's wife is so marginalized, even though she played a pivotal role in the author's life to rescue him from his bad habit, as he mentions in this book, but she barely has any scenes at all. Overall, I really liked the book. It was fast-paced and light. I was not bored, and it was a pleasant read. The next book I read is called Zorro by Isabel Allende. Isabel Allende is a Chilean author, and she's one of my favorite authors of all time, and I would love to read all of her books. This book is a retelling of the legend of Zorro, who is a very famous fictional character who defends the weak people against corrupt government officials and other villains in 19th century California. In this book, the author chronicles the life of Diego, who is the man behind the mask of Zorro, from his childhood in Alta California to his education years in Barcelona, all the way through his return home to become Zorro, from 1790 to 1850 to be exact. If I could say one word to describe this book, I would say epic. The amount of research that went into writing this book was astounding. We learn of so many places, real-life events, and characters that lived in that period. All of that with beautiful writing and very gripping writing style. I could not get enough of this book. It took me so long to finish it because I was reading it slowly on purpose, so it will not end. The characters were fascinating. Their actions and mannerisms were very accurate for that time, and the battle scenes in this book were very exciting. I was reading on the edge of my seat, just like I was watching a movie. I really wish this book could be adapted into a movie or a series. I would watch it immediately. I just loved everything about this book, and it was the right blend between historical fiction and a thriller. I would like your support for my new channel by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Next book I read is called Cujo by Stephen King. All I can say about this book is that it was a disappointment. The story is about Cujo, which is a huge dog raised by a family, and it gets bitten by a bat, becomes rabid, and terrorizes the fictional town of Castle Rock, Maine. This is the main idea behind the book, and it could have been much better if the book was 200 pages long. However, Stephen King likes his books to be big, and in this book he stretches the simple idea of a rabid dog so thin until it reaches 400 pages. The book is filled with very long backstories of all the characters, whether they are important to the story or not. I mean, it's important for us to know more about the history of the characters, but I think it was overdone in a book of the horror genre, and it would have been better if the book is a contemporary. This way, most of the book felt like a filler, and it has become so boring because the horror and the thriller events are separated by so many things and events that don't move the plot forward. Content warning, some scenes in this book are very gory and grisly, so beware. And as a very common issue with Stephen King's books, the ending was unsatisfying. Next book on my list is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. This book is a very famous novel that deserves the hype around it. The book starts at the end. The family's house has been set on fire. The fire squad is trying to put out the fires. And then we find out that it was done on purpose because they discovered that there are little fires everywhere. Only this phrase has a double meaning because so many metaphorical little fires have been slowly igniting within the members of the perfect family called the Richardson. It all starts when a woman called Mia and her teenage daughter called Pearl rent the upper apartment of a house owned by the Richardson family. From there we get to know the members of the two families and their interactions. At first I thought this book is YA because the focus of the story is the teenage girl Pearl, but then I discovered that this book is about the relationship between mothers and daughters. I really loved the character development in this book. All the characters are multi-layered with very strong thoughts and opinions, which made me keep thinking throughout reading this book because something happens and I don't want to spoil it, and all the characters have strong and convincing opinions about the subject, and I found myself unable to decide which side I'm on. And I still don't know, even after finishing the book. The author was very good at taking the side of the character that she's narrating, and it was amazing and thought-provoking. The only thing I didn't like about this book is, like I said, this book is only about mothers and daughters, while the men of the family are almost completely unheard throughout the book. Final book I read this month is called Writers and Lovers by Lily King. The title sums up the story perfectly. The book is about the life of a writer and her struggle to finish her first novel. She's working as a waitress while she's writing, and she meets multiple men who become her lovers at different intervals, until one period when she meets two guys and she falls in love with both of them at the same time. This event happens halfway through the book. The book was going really strong until that half-point mark when it becomes a romance novel. This has weakened the book so much, and I felt so bored after that. The book is written so beautifully with amazing prose throughout the book. I felt that I could connect with the protagonist in her state of loss and confusion in life, which most people in their youth relate to. The book discusses themes of loss and grief over the death of loved ones, especially the loss of the mother, which were emotional parts of the book. Overall, I enjoyed the book. The writing was amazing, but the romance bit I was not interested in at all. At the end of this video, please tell me which books of these have you read, or are you planning to include them in your TBR? And if you read them, what did you like and what you didn't like about them? Please watch my previous video about the most disappointing books I read in 2022. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching and happy reading.